Hello there, thank you very much for pressing play and watching this video. So this is another one of my videos in this series where I attempt to tackle a few often difficult issues and problems and try and advise on how we may manage certain circumstances, or perhaps give you advice on how to manage it yourself if you're a self-managing landlord. So today what I want to talk about is checkout. Now I'm not going to go into the specifics of what we do on a checkout. What I really want to talk about today is how to handle and manage your reactions to perhaps a property that is, or your property that's returned in a condition that you perhaps were not quite expecting, okay? And it's not a particularly uncommon problem, especially with landlords that might have rented out their house for quite some time, possibly 2, 3, 4 years. And if you've given it to a managing agent and they've been inspecting, then you won't have seen the property for quite some time. And probably what you're thinking in your head, what you're remembering, is how it was when you handed it over. And of course, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, even with fair wear and tear, that property is going to look different. Okay, so I really want to help you manage your expectations, but also give you some strategies for coping and dealing with any problems and disappointments that might arise. Not often that we have these problems. To be honest, in my experience, this is most common with landlords who've been renting out a former family home and then they're taking it back either to go on the sales market or to live back in the home. Okay, so picture the scene. You've been to the property, you've done the checkout with the tenant, or perhaps the agent's done the checkout, or we've done the checkout, and you've followed on afterwards, and things are not quite as you would expect. Perhaps the carpets are dirty, perhaps there's grubby marks on the walls, perhaps there's mold, perhaps there's things are broken and so on, and you weren't expecting them. Now I'd like to think with the actual snags, if we were managing the property, would have tracked those and reported those back to you in reports. However, when we do our property inspections, the tenant has got all their contents in the property. They've got their furniture in there, they've got their belongings in there and so on. So our inspections, although we aim to be as thorough as we can, we really do, we can't assess the property fully because things are in the way, furniture's in the way, the tenant's living in there and so on. We don't always get access to all rooms, okay, but we do our best. So the checkout is the best time to obviously make an assessment on the condition of the property. So you've been there and you're not happy. Okay, what to do? Stay calm. There is no need to get angry. I want to really emphasize that this is about remaining professional. Okay, so stay professional, stay calm. There's no need for any kind of revenge. Do not think that you've been somehow personally offended, okay? I can't emphasize that enough, okay? And the other thing is as well, if we've been managing your property or perhaps another agent's been managing it, depending on whether you're one of our clients or whether you're just somebody generally viewing this video, bear in mind your agent is not a proxy for the tenant, okay? The tenant is the agent is not your tenant. And in fact, Proud House Property Management, when we check out a tenant, in the weeks prior to checkout, we will have sent that tenant a very detailed checkout letter with a full set of instructions, a cleaning schedule, a link to a video on our YouTube channel with the things to look out for on cleaning, and also any specific advice that they may need for that particular property. So we have given them all of the information and all of the standards, if you like, that are required to achieve the correct checkout standard. That is all we can do. We are not the police. We have no powers of authority or discipline. All we can do is give the tenant the information and request that they check out to the correct standard. Okay, so please, don't somehow try and take this out on us. Our job now, our role now is to continue managing the property, even though it's empty, managing your expectations and helping manage any dispute or adjudication that needs to take place when it comes to a deposit claim. Okay, so stay calm. Okay, then have a breather, then assess. Okay, have a look around the property and be very objective about what you're seeing. Okay, bear in mind that tenants have a right to fair wear and tear. Okay, so there are going to be marks on the walls. If the tenants lived in the property for 2 or 3 years, there are going to possibly be worn out areas of carpet. You might have some scuffs and even some damage. You may find that things that move, like the oven door, the hinge might be getting a bit, a little bit loose, or might squeak, or whatever it might be. You're gonna have these things. Ask yourself the question: if you had lived in the property for the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, would you expect these sorts of problems as well? If the answer is yes, you're probably looking at wear and tear as opposed to any legitimate claim or any legitimate reason to dispute the checkout standard. So just have a think about that as your first sort of benchmark, if you like, for assessing things. And then if you decide that something's not wear and tear, then it's going to have to be some sort of negligence, vandalism, and unauthorized change, something along those sorts of lines. Okay, so you need to then assess that and back it up with some kind of evidence. Okay, and of course the best thing you need is going to be the inventory. So your inventory document should be fully referenced, fully indexed, photographed where possible, and well described. Okay, so use the inventory as your reference for what the condition was at the start of the tenancy and what it was as of today or very soon after you've done the checkout. Okay, and make a straightforward comparison. Okay, that's what you're looking to do. Okay, and be very distilled, very objective about it. Okay, what's the comparison on the day of check-in? What's the comparison on the day of checkout? Okay, and if you can get 2 photographs side by side, then that's the ideal. And then you need to think about some other factors as well, and this is the area now that landlords will start misunderstanding, okay, or commonly might not be really thought about. If you put a claim in through your deposit body, and we use the deposit protection service and we use the custodial scheme. So if you put in a claim against a tenant and the tenant disputes it, then the deposit protection service will adjudicate. And they would expect the landlord to do a couple of things. They would expect the landlord to apportion costs. So let's say, for example, you've got a carpet in the house that's been stained by the tenant. Let's say that carpet is a budget carpet and you'd expect it to have a life of 5 years. If the carpet is already 4 years old, then you've only got 1 year of life left in that carpet. So the very most that you could claim against the tenant for the cost of a new carpet would be 1/5 of the cost. Okay, so you have to think about apportioning those costs, and that's really, really important. And then the next thing you need to think about is mitigating your loss. Okay, so you have a legal obligation, and this is the same with insurance claims and other things in life. It's not just with deposit deductions. You have to mitigate your loss. So lessen or reduce the severity of the problem. You, as the landlord, you have to make those steps if you can. So for example, if you've got an isolated stain on a carpet, can you repair it or can you clean it? Okay, that's your first course of action, instead of trying to state that the carpets need to be replaced and trying to withhold all of a deposit. Okay, so just to summarise those things: understand fair wear and tear, mitigate your loss, and apportion those costs. Okay, once you've factored all of those in, you might find, I'm sorry guys, this is just life really, and this is part of being a landlord and part of the rentals process. And I'm not necessarily advocating this in any particularly strong way, but on the other hand, I'm not against it either. Okay, because I think that actually ultimately we're looking for a fair outcome. You need to calculate your deductions, and by the time you've calculated your deductions, you may find that the cost of that carpet that you had anticipated, let's say £500 for a new carpet, by the time you factored in all the considerations, you might be down to something that's more like 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 pounds for a repair or a clean. Okay, and that would be the sort of calculations that the perhaps a DPS adjudicator might expect you to make. Okay, so that's the general overview. Now, Proud House Property Management, if you are a landlord of one of our managed properties, we do that process for you and we help you with that. Okay, We aim to also process this quite quickly as well. No one wants big, long, protracted disputes and deductions and so on. The tenant wants to get their money back. The landlord wants to get their property sorted. We want everyone happy. That's what we really, really want. And if we're putting the property back on the market, then clearly we want to crack on with that as well. So we're not going to advise that deductions go backwards and forwards and there's a big long negotiation and so on, but I certainly do strongly advocate that you get a basic agreement from the tenant first, verbally or via email, or we'll certainly arrange that if we're managing your property. And then once we've got agreement in principle, then we go to the Deposit Protection Service on their website and we put in the deposit deductions. If you were to just put in the deposit deductions without trying to reach any agreement with the tenant, all they got to do is click the button that says dispute and then you're into the DPS adjudicating, and then that is a whole world of providing evidence, reports, statements, invoices, estimates, etc., etc. And the administrative burden for that sometimes is not worth the claim. Okay, guys, I also appreciate there will be times when a property may be, and it happens very rarely, we've only ever had it happen once in 5 years and over several hundred tenancies, okay? But occasionally you may get your property back and it's properly trashed, okay? Like properly, someone's beaten up, vandalized it and so on, okay? That's different, subject to a different video. I'm talking about sort of routine checkout stuff. Okay, guys, that was quite a long video. We're nearly up to 12 minutes at the moment, so I don't want to go on for any longer, but I really hope that helps. We're here to help, guys, so if you've got any queries and want further advice, then just give me a shout. Repairs at proudhouseproperty.co.uk for any sort of maintenance type stuff, or if you've got a general query, then send it into my office at proudhouseproperty.co.uk, or you can call us on 01935 388 456. Okay, thanks very much, take care, stay calm.